Hello and welcome everybody. We are back for the lesson number 1 of Mike's sales certification class with Archer Travel Service. How you doing, Mike?
I am well. I'm finally back to being healthy after a week being sick, and I hate being sick. So things are good. I want to welcome everybody to this very first session. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the course itself, and then we're going to talk about lesson one. So, first thing I want you to do is I want Amanda to tell you where you can find the lessons and the manual.
Perfect. So you log into your back office, click on Travel Cafe, all your travel resources. Now you're in here, you go to trainings. All your trainings are going to be found here. And then you want to go to quick start because we want you to get started right away. And you click on sales training certification program. So again, that's back office, travel cafe, trainings, quick start, sales certification program. And you'll find it right here, which Mike is going to explain in a second, the PDF, the videos, and his contact information.
Okay, first thing I want you to do, if you have not done it, today's not going to be critical as much as the rest of the lessons are. But the very first thing I want you to do is I want you to download the manual and I want you to print it out. It's just in a PDF format. It's really simple. And then what I would like you to do, because this is something that if you are smart, you will reference this at least for the first year or two of your selling career until you get comfortable with all the skills that are in here. So what I'd like you to do is print it out and put it in a 1-inch binder. That's all it takes is a 1-inch binder. And it's just, I put mine in sleeves because I'm constantly in here reviewing the tests and everything. So I put them in protective sleeves, but you don't have to. So what you're looking at here is this is the course that our training is based off of. This was just so you understand, our course is 7 weeks. That's roughly 30 to 40 minutes for those 7 weeks per week. This class that I originally taught was a 16-week class that met 2 nights a week for 3 hours a night. So we have condensed everything way down to get you the very basics of what's going on. So, and the program is called Quad Track. It was a guy by the name of Conrad Illness, who was one of the premier insurance executives, sales executives in the country during the 80s and 90s. He wrote a book called Inside Secrets of Outstanding Salespeople, and this was his course that he devised. And it's called Quad Track: Question, Understand, Answer, and Decide. And he used a little train, and this is called the little engine that could. We're gonna get into this later, and I'm gonna walk you through this. Anyway, this is an excellent class. I loved it. I loved it so much. The very first sales job I had was selling apartment supplies to big complexes in the Seattle area. And our boss put us through this class, and I liked it so much. I actually ended up teaching it for almost 8 years at night, so Con could have the night off. So I am very familiar with this program. I've used it. I've been very successful with it. And my job is to teach you the basics of this so that you can understand it as well. All right, so intro to lesson one. So you signed up to be an Evo rep. Now what? What are you going to do? How are you going to approach this? What have you gotten yourself into? And we're going to get into that in a little bit. But first of all, I want to give you a little bit of my background so you can understand why my brother Ron thought I was qualified to actually teach this class. So primarily how I got into sales, and I got into sales late. I didn't get into sales until I was in my 30s, and I was tired of bouncing around. I bounced around for 10, 12 years, and I had 10 or 12 jobs, and I got bored with all of them. And I finally decided, you know what? I want a job where I'm responsible for my income and nobody else. And there was no place else to do that but in sales. So I started as an apartment supply house, and I love selling. I love going into people, but I just I didn't like my boss. I didn't like my products, and I actually was scared. So anyway, my background, I spent 3 years in the apartment supply business, and then I spent 27 years in the yearbook sales business. That's where my passion was because my degree was in teaching. I loved working with kids, and then I found out I was a pretty good salesman. So the two was a natural fit for me. Over that 27 years, I delivered over $25 million worth of yearbook sales to the company in that time. And when I retired in 2014, I was the number 6 guy in the company out of 125 sales reps nationwide. My final delivered volume was 1.6 million, and I had 90 schools that were in my territory that I developed. When I retired, they split my territory into 2 rookies, and both of those rookies that I helped train are now in their 6th and 7th years, and they are both doing over $1 million in sales. So I was a mentor for the company, and then, like I said, I was in the Sales Training Institute for about 8 or 9 years, working with that. I was actually one of the main mentors in the company for training reps because they had known of my background as a sales training guy prior to coming to work for them. So what qualifies me to help you guys is you guys are in the kind of the same boat that Walsworth. I work for a company called Walsworth Publishing. At the time we were the smallest of the 4 yearbook houses, and we have now grown to be, I think, the number 3 or number 2 company. So in any event, if you've ever heard of Walsworth Yearbooks, that was the company that I worked for. When we recruited people, our main recruiting field was the yearbook advisors themselves. And they always thought, the yearbook advisors had the fun job. They got to teach the kids how to put the yearbooks together, but they didn't know anything about the other side of the job, which was the selling, the accounting, the billing, the financing, the invoicing, all of that stuff, the back office stuff that you guys are learning through the Travel Cafe. You're in the same boat. A lot of you have no sales background. And so you're looking to, okay, how can I make myself a better salesperson? How can I get better knowing nothing about the business? So that's where we're coming from. The background that my company recruited from and the background that you are being recruited from are very, very similar. And there's a lot of crossover here. So I know this class is going to help you. One of the first things that I want is, I never thought of myself as a salesperson because I always thought, people think salespeople, that's who they are. They're salespeople. They're always on, they're always selling something. And that's not really the case. Sales really isn't who you are. Sales is what you do. And it takes some people, and we all know these people, their entire lives are wrapped up around whatever it is their profession is. And so I want you to avoid that trap. It's not necessarily a trap as much as it's something that you could fall into, that I don't want selling to define you. It's not who you are. Sales is just something that you do because you love doing it. You love talking to people, you love helping them plan your trips. But first and foremost, never ever forget, you are not a travel consultant, you are not a travel advisor. You are a sales rep selling travel. So you got to remember the other side of that. I can't tell you how many people in the yearbook business were a yearbook consultant, they were a yearbook friend. My card said sales, service, satisfaction. Mike Archer, sales rep. So it wasn't what I did. It wasn't who I was, but it was what I do. And I was really good at it. And I want you guys to be that exact same way. Okay. It's a subtle difference, and I hope you get the difference. All right, let's talk about some things. Really, it's really this simple. A sales rep is a professional who helps people get to what they want, what they need, and what they desire. Your job, and this is really your job, is to show people why it's better to buy it from you than it is to buy it from anybody else, because you're the best person out there. And at the end of this course, you will be one of the best people out there. All right. Motivation. Why do you want to do this? What is your motivation? Is it because you have a passion for people? Is it because you have a passion for traveling? Is it because you want the travel perks and you want to save money? Is it because you want to help others to have a better lifestyle? Or is it because you simply want to make money? Now, the key to all of this is money should not be at the top of the list. I went into apartment sales because I was flat broke. I'd been out of work for a while and I just needed money. And I got good at sales, but I hated the job because I was only in it for the money. When I found yearbooks, I found my lifelong passion, because my passion was to help kids and teachers make better yearbooks. It was to show them a better way to do things. And that was my passion, because I have a kind of a design, sort of a design background. You wouldn't know it by my PowerPoints because they're pretty simple, but I have a lot of fun designing stuff. So if you're in it for the money, you're probably not going to do very well at this. And I need you to understand that going in, because sales is a relationship business. And you're going to hear me say that over and over and over again. It's your job helping people get what they want. And along the way, you're going to put a little bit of money in your pocket. And the better you get, the more money you put in your pocket. But if money is your main motivation, you're going to struggle, probably more than you should. Okay, so what are your worries? What worries you more than anything else about coming into sales? I can't speak for you, so I'll just tell you my story, and maybe some of you can identify with it. When I first started in apartment supplies, I had a wife, 3 kids, a mortgage, debts up my fanny, and I had this old beat up Datsun pickup truck that I was wondering if I was going to get to work with it every day. I had a territory that the company had given me, and it was a nice territory. I was in some really nice, influential condo, high-rise, high-end apartment buildings. And one day I was sitting in this cul-de-sac that had 4 really nice high-rise apartments and condos in them, and I couldn't get out of the truck. I was absolutely paralyzed. And the reason I couldn't get out of the truck was because I was worried about people telling me no. I was worried about rejection. And I'd been only on the job for maybe a week or so, and I had this issue. Every time I stopped the truck, I had to sit there for 5 or 10 minutes before I got out of the truck. Finally, it just dawned on me. I had this epiphany. I'm a nice guy. I've got some really nice things to sell that these people need. And if the people in this cul-de-sac don't want what I have, I'm going to go find somebody that does. In the next 30 days, I made over 400 cold calls, just driving around in my territory, stopping and introducing myself, not caring whether they purchased from me or not. All I wanted to do is introduce myself, introduce my company, let them know there was somebody out there that cared for them. And within 3 months, we had 6 sales reps in the company. And within 3 months, I was the #1 sales rep. So the thing about this is, and this was really weird, The less I worried about people telling me no, the less it happened. And the only thing I can think of that made this happen was because my whole demeanor changed. I had a smile on my face. I had a smile in my voice. You know, everything. My posture was greater. I stood up a little taller. My handshake was a lot better. I looked people in the eye. My whole everything about that changed. So all I can tell you is what worries you. And I can also tell you 90% of what you worry about never happens. So just get out there and just have fun with it. You heard, I already said this once. What sales really is nothing more than a relationship business. It was the founding principle that mom and dad had when they started the travel service in the 50s. Dad, dad was uncanny in his relationships with people. And somehow he passed it along to Ron and to Steve and to me and our sister. Dad always knew when he thought he might be in trouble with a client because all of a sudden a thought would pop into his head. What have I done for those people recently? So he'd get on the phone, invite them out for lunch, um, go sit down and visit with them. And he got to be friends with a lot of these people that stood him in good stead his entire life. I was the same way. If I hadn't called on a school for a while, I would go, wait a minute, I haven't seen those guys for a while. I better check in and see what's going on. You're gonna get that same kind of a feeling as you start developing your own client base. This course and selling in general does not work on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. You cannot just send out messages on all of those. Here's a trip. Email me with a request if you're busy. Or somebody sends you a request and you email them out a form and wait for them to fill the form out and get back to you. If that's the way you're being taught, you are not going to be successful in this business. I guarantee it. You have got to get in front of people. You've got to talk to them. You've got to shake their hands. You've got to look them in the eye. You've got to develop the relationships. You might sell one person one time, but you're going to have to develop a huge one-time client base. Your goal is to develop contacts that they're going to come back to you year after year after year. I was in the yearbook business for 27 years, and most of my schools I had for 20 years or more because they were loyal to me. I was loyal to them. I took care of them. That's what your goal is in this process. What are you selling? More than anything else, you're selling you. You're selling yourself first. It is your job to show them why it's in their best interest to buy your products and your services from you rather than having it do themselves online, or they might get confused. They don't know what's going on. Your job is to prove to them that you're the travel professional and you can take care of them better than they can take care of themselves or anybody else for that matter. And to do that, this is what we're going to get into now, starting in pretty quick. There's two parts to this. There's an art and a science. The science of selling is nothing more than a process. It's really, really simple. And we're going to go through that today, just so you can see it. And then we're going to go through it step by step by step in the next 6 weeks. The art of it is taking your own personality, how you like to talk, how you like to ask questions, how you like to word things, how you like to interact with people. You're going to superimpose your personality on top of this process. And that's what's going to make you successful. All right. So what I want you to do, if you haven't done it, go to page 2 if you haven't. But what's on page 2 is this chart. So this is how you're going to manage your time. in the process. The old way of selling that some people still do, it's not very successful, especially those big companies that teach you to sell off of a script. Um, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But they spend a lot of time selling and not a lot of time establishing a relationship. This course flips that process. You're going to spend quite a bit of time establishing a relationship, getting to know them, and all of this. Don't worry about how you're going to do this. Just this is the process. We're going to walk you through that in all the next lessons. So you're going to establish a relationship. Next thing you're going to do, you notice that in the biggest chunk of this triangle is the asking questions phase. That's the biggest chunk, and you'll understand why in a couple of weeks. After you've asked the questions and you've gotten all the information that you need, you are now going to present your program to them. It's kind of like you're going to sell them a Reader's Digest condensed version. Asking the questions is you're trying to find out what kind of book they want to read. And when you present your program, you're going to present them that book. And how do you know they'll read it? Because they told you they will. And after you presented your program, making the decision, excuse me, I'm still getting over this cold. If you follow this process this way, making the decision instead of being a back and forth headbutting thing, it's a natural conclusion to the whole process. It's an easy way to get yes. Now, one thing to understand when you're selling, a lot of people think you just start right in and at the very end, they're going to say yes to the sale. Your goal is not to get to one big yes. Your goal is to walk through this process and get a series of smaller incremental yeses so that you can take them along with you through your program, through this process to get to the end result, which is they buy from you. So that's how you manage the time. Now, there's no set time in any one of these quadrants. It's wherever you're comfortable and wherever you feel like, okay, I've got enough time here. It's time to move on to the next phase. And I will show you how to do that in the next couple of lessons. All right. Here is the process. This is the science of selling, and that's on page 3 for those of you that have got the manual already done. First thing you're going to do is you're going to establish a relationship. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to ask questions. Now, when you've asked your questions, this is a key piece, and this is going to come up over and over and over again. Summary statements. You are constantly summarizing everything you're talking about to make sure they're on the same page. And at the very end, they surprise you with, well, you haven't talked about this yet, so I'm not ready to buy. This is on the test, the summary statement. Do I know enough? Every time I walked into a sales call, a new sales call, I walked in and my entire brain was filled with nothing but red flags. My job was to turn those red flags into yellow flags, which meant I knew some stuff, but I didn't think I knew enough stuff to be adequately prepared for the presentation. I just kept going until every flag in my head was green. At that point, I would stop and I would say, okay, I think I have enough information here that I can make an intelligent proposal. This is what we talked about. This, and this. Have I covered everything? Is there something else? Is there something I'm missing? Is there something else we need to talk about before we move on? If this is critical, the summary statement is critical. If the answer is no, I go back up into my ask question phase until that question is answered with a yes. At that point, I stop. Now, if you're just selling a simple airline ticket to a friend, you can just keep going. But if you're working on a complex sale where it's an all-inclusive 2-week or it's a family reunion type thing that is going to take some time for you to prepare, at this point, you stop and you say, okay, I've got enough time. I mean, I've got enough information. Now I'm going to go home and I'm going to make a proposal. It's going to take me a day. So today is Tuesday. I'd like to come back on Thursday. It's 1:30. I'd like to come back at this exact same time. Is that okay? We set the appointment. I come back. I make my presentation, and I keep after every, and so there's specific things you do to make the presentation, and then you decide. That is the process. That's it. Selling is not rocket science. It's not brain surgery. It's an orderly, organized process that you control. And here's the key, and we're going to get into this too. You control the conversation, not by talking, but by asking questions. The person who's asking the questions is the person that's in control, because you're getting the information you need in order to make the sale, to put some money in your pocket and give them a desirable product that you know they're going to enjoy. All right, this is in the back of the book. These are all of the skills that we are going to teach you in this next 7 weeks. So you can go to the back of the book and look at all that. And by the way, if I were you guys, I would just kind of glance through the manual and just take a look at the kind of stuff that's in there and review it so that you're ready for each week. All right, so we're still on page 3 here. So there's a couple of things I want to talk about, and then we're done for today. The hidden key to your success, and you're not going to see this anywhere else in any sales training program you've ever taken or been a part of. This 5 golden minutes was developed by Walsworth Publishing just for these advisors who didn't know how to sell, but it was a valuable aid to help them in the process. So the key, I'm going to give you a whole series of questions to ask, but the key, and this is on the test, it's helping you improve your skills, your selling skills. Okay, so what I would really like you to do is, after you print the manual, I want you to get out a Word doc or a Google doc or whatever, and I want you to write these questions down, print them out, and take them with you on your sales calls. Or you can do this after an email, after a Zoom call, after an actual physical call, but you can do this to help you improve right then and there on the spot. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? When I first got started, I had a lot of stuff that I answered on that question. What could I have done better? She might have gotten something pretty good, but I was just not quite there on that one. What did I miss? If you do the process correctly and you keep summarizing and asking yourself, do I know enough? And asking them, is there anything else? You should not have to ask this question. If you did, this is one of the biggest stumbling blocks you'll have. Your goal is not to have to ask this question. Did I get a referral? Now, you're not going to do this every time. Typically, you will do this toward the end of the sale. And this works. This works whether you got the sale or whether you didn't get the sale. And it's simply a matter of, wow, I'm really glad you're excited to work with us. Do you know anybody else that might be interested? Or, man, I'm sorry we couldn't get together and do some business with each other, but do you know anybody, your family or friends, that might be interested in what it is we have to offer? Okay. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And this right here, this right here, did I get a referral? This is going to get you more business than you'll ever dream of, simply by being aware of asking that question. And then finally, did you send a thank you note? Depending on where you are in the sales call, if it's an initial call, a telephone call, an Instagram, an email thank you, a handwritten note, anything, all the way up to, if you got a really complex sale, send them a nice thank you card or something along those natures. But people don't do that in this business anymore. And a thank you note lets them know You're interested in their business. And all of this 5 golden minutes, and I know you guys have heard this, we call it, people call it avoiding insanity. I call it avoiding sales insanity, which is doing the same thing over and over, but expecting different results. The 5 golden minutes will help you get to those different results that will get you from no's to yeses a lot faster than you ordinarily would. All right, so finally, the other key to your success, and the biggest reason, the single biggest reason you will lose a sale, is that you never, ever in this lifetime leave the timing of any decision up to the client. If you make a presentation and you walk away saying that, well, I'll get back to you, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to get back to you. And how many times, those of you that have been in the business for a while, how many times have you sent out an email with a quote, never heard back? How many times have you sent out a request and the quote never came back to you? When you send that stuff out, you need to follow up. Here is the quote. When would be a good time for us to touch base with each other? I have these dates and these dates available. Or before you send the quote out, call them. Say, you know, I've got this quote, but I'd really like to meet you so that I can, the quote tells me stuff, but it doesn't tell me the things that I need. I'd really like to sit down with you to go over what it is you're interested in. When would be a good time to do that? You are the one that's in control of your destiny, which means you make all of the timing decisions without exception. So again, this is on the test, and you're going to see these last 2 slides, you're going to see over and over and over again in the presentation. So that, my friends, is it. So if anybody has any questions, you can give me a call, 206-979-4249, or you can email me, mike@archertravel.com. Now, my nephew Mike also works at archertravel.com, and his email is michael@archertravel.com. So don't email him, email me. So mike@archertravel.com. And I'm happy to sit and chat with you over anything at any time. I'm a retired guy sitting in my desk right here in my office, fat, dumb, and happy, and I'll be happy to talk to you. So, Amanda, we're a little over. Does anybody have any questions?
Someone just said, do I have to register with Mike first to take the course? And no, you don't. You just have to join us. Just join us.
Yep. Oh, one thing I forgot to tell you guys. I know that when you were recruited, probably the person that recruited you was heavy on not so much selling travel, but it's getting other people to recruit to start your own team, your own downline. The way this works, I'm teaching you general sales strategies. This works for the travel side. It works for the recruitment side. It works equally well for both. I'm teaching you general sales principles. Jose's training is geared specifically to selling travel. And the two of us collaborate every once in a while on our trainings. So don't be afraid to use this and combine it and merge it with Jose's. So to get ready for next week, what I would like you to do is download this, print out, and look and get a heads up on lesson 2, because I'm going to have you fill out a couple of forms. So if you can do those ahead of time, that would be great. Otherwise, if there's no questions,
But there is a question. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Fire away.
This one is from Paul. What is the ideal time after the presentation and after selling the quote? What is the ideal time after a client receives the quote to set an appointment with the client to close the sale?
You should not send him the quote and then set a time. You should set a time to deliver the quote and go over it with them. You never, ever send them the quote and then say, let's get together. That's not controlling the time. That's not controlling the appointment. you never ever want to go in, you never ever want to send it to them ahead of time. You want to say, I've got your proposal ready to go. When's a good time to meet that we can go over it with it? I can go over it with you and answer your questions. You never want to send it out ahead of time, ever.
Perfect. That's a wonderful answer. And I don't see any other questions, just a lot of thank yous, and that it was very informative, which it always is. So, guys, don't miss out. Mike is going to be live with us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for the next 6 weeks after this, and then you can finish your course. Mike, anything else you want to add before we close out?
Yeah, next time I won't talk about myself so much. All right, guys. It was wonderful to be with you. I look forward to seeing you a week from now, 1 o'clock, right here. Bye.